Hello, gentles and ladymen. I'm Ulan Gaming, and today's video is all about Sentinels. Now, I've actually done a video about Sentinels already, but since doing that video, my understanding of Sentinels and their mechanics has improved, and my overall opinion of the unit as a whole has drastically increased and gotten better, to the point where Sentinels are actually one of my favorite units to use as Malta. And so today, we are going to talk about why that is, what makes Sentinels so special, and overall, just everything about them. So, Sentinels are, of course, the Malta Musketeer equivalent. They have the same base HP and range attack of a normal Musketeer, being 150 HP and 23 range attack, but they cost 2 population instead of 1. They also cost a little bit more than a normal Musketeer, being 60 food and 40 coin, as opposed to 75 food and 25 coin. Me personally, I actually prefer this, because it means that hunts do not get drained quite as fast, and your hunts and your coin mines get drained a little bit more evenly, and just evenly across the board. It's also the exact same food to coin ratio that Hussars cost, so it makes it very easy to, as well as Hospitallers, so it makes it very easy to keep an even balance of heavy cavalry, Hospitallers, and Sentinels all in your core army together under the exact same macro. In terms of bonuses that they get, they do get a couple, because they are worth 2 population after all, and they have the base stats seemingly of a 1 pop unit, so it would make sense for them to get a little bit of extra. So what they have going for them is 4.25 movement speed as opposed to 4. Now Ashigaru have 5 movement speed, but the Japanese also doesn't have access to faster movement speed techs, such as the Arsenal tech, available to us at the Advanced Arsenal for military drummers, which actually means that Sentinels are one of the fastest Musketeers in the entire game once you send in the Advanced Arsenal card. They also have the ability to build outposts just right from the get-go. Up to 4 of them can work on any outpost at any given time. Which also leads into their other bonus, which is the Defender Aura. Now, the Defender Aura allows the unit to fight stronger near own and allied buildings, especially buildings with a ranged attack on them. So all of the buildings that applies for Malta specifically are the outposts that they can create, the town center, the commanderies, and fixed guns, believe it or not. It does apply to fixed guns as well. Now, when it says especially, they do still get a bonus for being near normal buildings, but it is not quite as much. As you can see here, in this case, they have 173 HP and 26 attack instead of 150 and 20. And if we go over to the scattering of buildings here, the bonus is significantly less. It goes down from a 15% bonus, which is what this is now, to a 7.5% bonus. They get double the effectiveness, and you can tell it's active because of the little logo that appears at their feet. As you can see, they're near the houses, and the bonus has greatly diminished. But one of the things that is... So, right off the bat, having a 15% stat bonus to your Sentinels is just incredible, because it makes it so that a veteran stat boost for Musketeers is 20%. And the fact that these Sentinels start out what they are makes them essentially borderline veteran Musketeers available for training in the Second Age without any cards needing to be sent, so long as they are near your own defensive ranged buildings. And for very cheap as well. They're borderline identical in cost to normal Musketeers, but I think weighted a little bit more balanced and in a better way. That makes the Sentinel quite nifty, and one of the other things that they have going for them is that they have a particularly high base attack in melee. You can see if you switch them to melee here, they get out their halberds, and that's just really cool in general. But they have 18 base melee attack in exchange for only having a 2x multiplier against cavalry. Normal Musketeers have a 13 with a 3 times, which equates out to 39 damage, and Sentinels only do 36 with a 2 times to Cavalry. However, I would gladly take that 3 damage in exchange for the capability to perform high melee damage against everything else in addition to just the Cavalry. Like, Sentinels are basically halberdiers, essentially. You put them near your town center, and the aura boost, the 15% aura boost, which stays on them constantly, boosts them up even more. We're near the houses now, so it goes up to 19, and then up to 20 once we're near the town center. And now I want to talk about one of the critical factors that makes Sentinels worth it. Sentinels obviously are not worth the stats that they have for their 2 population cost. Sentinels are bad units in terms of population cost efficiency. They're never going to be, and in fact, their cheapness in resources is what gives them value, and the population cost is the real cost of the unit. And if you're going to go Sentinels, you're going to be having to build a lot of houses to field it. But going Sentinels is absolutely possible because the unit is wonderfully resource efficient. This is a 100 resource unit, and it beats British Musketeers in every single age. And a lot of this is due in part to this Defender aura, because it's not just a 15% bonus, it's actually more than that. You see, the Malta Defender aura is actually a scaling boost, which means that it scales 15% based off of your Sentinel's current stats, not its base stats. It's not a flat 15% boost, which means that when you get your 20% veteran boost, it takes 20% of that and adds it again as Defender aura. For example, we can see here that the 15% aura boost is boosting the HP by 23. Now, if we leave the aura, you can see they're at their bases here, and then we research Veterancy upgrade, which is 20%. Now, through this, they now have 180 HP, and we can see that that Veteran upgrade is giving them 30 health in total compared to their normalness. Now, if you remember, the Defender aura gave them 23 health previously, but now if we go towards the Outpost, that 15% aura boost has a much larger amount of HP to stack from, and you can see that instead of getting 23 and going from 30 to 53, it is now giving 27 HP, and we go from 30 to 57. In this regard, the Sentinels keep ahead with just their 15% aura boost card right here. This one 15% aura boost allows them to keep ahead of triple-carded British Musketeers in the Third Age, due to British Musketeers getting 30% boost and Malta Sentinels getting probably about 35% boost. 36% boost, somewhere along those lines. But you do have to take into consideration, then, there is one more thing that boosts your Sentinels and just your overall units as Malta, and that is Malta's Civilization bonus that they get plus 2% hit points with every single shipment. So now you see, with just that one shipment, we are now at 35 attack and 236 HP. And in fact, with just this one shipment here, Sentinels scale extremely hard into the Third Age as soon as you get their veteran stats. And when I like to run Sentinels, one of the biggest things I do is I always send Sovereign Order of Malta first, as well as my first card upon hitting Age 3, as well as hitting their veterancy upgrades, because the stat difference is very, very stark. But what's awesome about this is, even just in a normal game, for example, we can do a little bit of math here. In a normal game, by the, say, 7-minute mark, when you're just starting to get your Sentinels out, you will have probably sent 3 Musketeers, German immigrants, Wignicourt, and maybe 700 wood. Something like that. That's only 4 shipments. That's 8% HP. Now, with 150 base HP, each shipment is adding 3 HP to the Sentinel's stat bar. Right, so that 8% turns into 12 HP to add to the Sentinel stats. So their base stats go from 150 to 162. Well, now when you add the Defender Aura, that's going to be closer to 180. And then by the time you're finished with your But by the time you're finished fighting in Age 2, this could very well be closer to 200. I've seen it go to 210 sometimes in some of the longer Age 2s. And it just leans into... And at that point, your Musketeers in Age 2 are well stronger than even some... are well stronger than Age 3 Musketeers, and as strong, potentially, as Age 3 carded Musketeers, and yet they still only cost 100 resources. And that's kind of what I'm getting at here, is that the Sentinel just has an incredible ability to keep up with Musketeers, even when you're an age behind. And every time you progress an age, they just get stronger and stronger and stronger at an increasing scaling rate, due to the Defender Aura being not being a static boost. Additionally, because they have such a high base damage on their melee attack, it actually makes them very, very good candidates for having the Arsenal Tech Socket Bayonet, which only costs, I think, 150 resources and grabs a 20% damage boost to your Sentinels. These are just Age 3. These are just Age 3 Sovereign Order of Malta Sentinels, and they have 27 hand attack. Like, it is absolutely fine for you to just throw your Sentinels in melee and charge into the enemy. These guys will even beat Corollians in melee. It's actually quite frightening. But if we grab Socket Bayonet, Musketeer Infantry, all melee attack damage plus 20%. Now, originally, when Sentinels came out, the Socket Bayonet did not affect them, but it did. But that changed in a Shadow update that happened quite a long time ago. That made the Socket Bayonet suddenly affect the Sentinel, which drastically increased their usefulness. Usefulnesses, because I believe that was one of the biggest complaints about them. And it really does show. Like now, when we're underneath the outpost, the Socket Bayonets in Age 3, they have 31 hand attack. It is just, it is quite the stark difference. It is a 4% damage boost. Now, when we look at cards that affect the Sentinels, there are actually quite a few of them. One of the most important upgrades besides Sovereign Order of Malta is Papal Bull, which is the unique church card. Now, most of the Papal Bull upgrades pertain to Hospitallers, and Hospitallers are very good in their own right as well. I think I already have some pretty good videos on Hospitallers, though, so I probably won't delve into them too much. But suffice to say, the church upgrades, the Papal Bull church upgrades, are very good, and there is one in particular that we are after if we are running Sentinels, and that is going... I don't know what the upgrade is, but essentially the biggest issue with Sentinels is that they only get their defender boost when you are near yours or your allies' buildings, which means that it's very hard to push into your opponent's base, because they have rather low siege for a Sentinel, for a Musketeer, because they're kind of meant to be a defensive unit, and you won't get your stat bonuses. But the Crusader Knights upgrade, here it is, allows your Sentinels and Hospitallers to gain their aura bonus from enemy buildings as well as yours, which means that your Sentinels can now fight under an enemy's TC with all of their goated stats. It also means, and then with of course, with their ability to build outposts, you can just build all along the front lines and continuously work your way up by building new outposts until you run into an enemy's base, forward base, and gain stats off of all of their buildings. Honestly, I actually, the aura boost is so powerful, I often completely ignore outposts and war huts and towers from enemies, simply because the outpost is helping me more than it's helping the opponent, and I clear out the entire army before I burn everything down. And that is very much so what you want to be doing with the Sentinels. Now, what I will say is that Sentinels, of course, they do cost 2 population. They cost 10 pop. It takes up 10 pop to get a batch, to get a full batch of Sentinels. Very similar to Strolats. And in fact, there are quite a few similarities between Sentinels and Strolats. I like to call them the Strolats of Soldados, because they share these same strengths. The Strollat is a unit that has very, very poor stats, even for a 1 population unit, and it is not a population efficient unit. But just like the Sentinel, it's extremely resource efficient in having incredibly high stats for the small amount of resources that it costs. Same goes for the Sentinel. The Sentinel, for a 100 resource musketeer, will always be the most powerful musketeer in the game. It's just not a population efficient one, which means that, much like the Strollat, what you want to be doing is to be constantly pushing your opponent. You don't want things to build up, you don't want your opponent to get his population efficient army out. You want to keep pushing, keep pressuring, keep attacking your opponent at all times, and allow your units to die so that you can cheaply refill them. And that's kind of how you want to bring in the Sentinel playstyle. But this is all just talking about ages 2 and 3, because there is a couple more... There's one more card that we are going to talk about that really helps the Sentinels take off. There's 2 more cards that we're going to talk about in total, but we're going to talk about Flintlock Rockets right now. Flintlock Rockets is a stat-boosting card that affects the Sentinels. It increases their stats, but also their cost, specifically by 45%. It gives them 45% attack and 45% hit points. Well, actually gives 47% hit points because the Maltese unit 2%. So it gives them 47% hit points, 45% attack, which is borderline an Imperial upgrade, but then also increases their cost by 45%. So now we get the guard upgrade here, and there it is. So now they cost 87 food and 58 coin, which still only turns out to be, 145 resources per Sentinel, which is still really, really cheap for a unit that has just incredible stats by this point. Additionally, because this is an Age 4 card, by then you can assume you've sent plenty of shipments. I like to assume that you've maybe sent 10, 12 shipments by this point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8... 9, 10, 11, yeah, we'll send one more, just for good measure. But then you really get to see just how fast the Sentinel stacks in raw stat power, and it makes it very, very nice. Now, besides that, the Flintlock rocket card also gives them the Battle Buster charged action, which does less damage than their range attack, but it does siege damage, so this is an option that allows them to fight at least temporarily against things like skirmishers and things that have range resistance. And then it has a little bit of splash damage. But importantly, it also allows the Sentinels to siege attack at 14 range, and also allows this siege action to fire from the musket, which makes it which makes it extremely fast, as the damage you do to the building is at the beginning of the animation instead of the end. What this kind of means is that you can borderline hit and run buildings. I'll show you guys that in a second as we get closer to the enemy lines. But it is an incredible ability that it really allows, that makes Sentinels go from one of the worst sieging musketeers to pretty much the best sieging musketeer in the game. If not for raw sieging power, because it is a little low, but for safety and the ability to just line up shots with your whole army very, very fast. You don't have to close in like you do with a lot of other musketeer units. So you can see they just shoot the building, and then they can move, and then they shoot the building again, and then they move. And it turns them really into just one of the best sieging musketeers in the game, despite having very low stats. That's the Battle Buster animation coming in there. So now we have I think exactly 12 shipments in. And you can see, if we run towards our TC here now, that they will have quite the stat pool once they get their full 15% instead of the 7.5% that they're getting next to these houses right now. It really pushes the Sentinel over the edge. Yeah, wait, almost... There we go. 403 HP in an Age 4 Musketeer is just ludicrous. This is above the HP levels that Imperial British Musketeers get. And that's really the point I'm getting at here, is that the Sentinel will always... the Sentinel always is a cheap option that has more stats than pretty much any raw Musketeer in the game, except for the Soldado, which of course is supposed to be the equivalent of a 2-pop unit, whereas this one is supposed to be more like 1.5 population for 1 pop the cost. Now there is one more card that we need to talk about that is less good, and that is Wall Guns. Wall Guns is a unique Sentinel. Sentinel upgrade that improves the attack and range of nearby Sentinels, as long as they are nearby walls. Now you might think that this ability sounds really good, and it is on paper, but in practice it is one of the worst upgrades that you can give them, and it is not worth an entire card to show you for, as I will show you momentarily. Now with wall guns in, we can start building walls around them and see the bonuses that they get. So immediately they go from 55 to 56, which is 1 damage, and they're still at 12 range, which is a 0 range upgrade. However, this is actually scaling depending on how many walls around them. So we can see that with this segment now, it's closer to 58 with 13 range, and we can get this to go up a little bit more. 59 at 14 range, 60 at 14 range. And you would think, that sounds like a not so bad upgrade, but it requires a heavy amount of wall. It requires a heavy amount of walls to really start getting this kind of benefit up there, and it also caps relatively short, if I remember correctly. The damage cap at the very least is only about 5 damage that you get out of it. The range, on the other hand, keeps scaling and scaling and scaling, but it requires an increasingly absurd number of walls to really get anything out of it. And it also caps itself out at 18, I'm 90% sure. Yes, the damage range caps out at 18. Additionally, the amount of, like... The range of the aura is extremely small, and it requires very precise positioning of your Sentinels, which kind of forces them to be stationary and kind of, in all honesty, ruins the point of having such great defensive capabilities. So you might think, what if you just built pillars? Well, it doesn't really seem to work like that. It seems like, from the testing that I've done, it seems like from the testing that I've done that the wall segments do a lot more towards the boost than just the pillars, and it requires a rather insane amount of pillars to get any kind of boost. Here, these are connected by a wall segment. So let's just delete that, so it's just the pillars. And you can see that we put in an exuberant amount of pillars and gotten nowhere near as much benefit, or a lot more keyboard work, as it were. And a total cost 17 wood. So 17 wall pillars at 5 wood each You guys can do the math, but that is a large amount of wood investment to give a very putrid amount of attack that only works if my Sentinels are standing directly in the center here. If I start to move away, it starts to go away pretty much instantaneously. So wall guns is pretty much never a good card. If they wanted to fix it, I think one of the things that they could do, for sure, is to make it a static bonus. Just make it, just lower the caps that it gives, make it focus more on range rather than damage, and make it a static bonus so that we could put pillars all around the map and have, like, this crazy strategy of building commanderies and outposts and gunpowder depots and fixed guns all around the map for this purpose of boosting our Sentinels. Now, because Sentinels are gunpowder units, they're actually one of the few units that gain actual stat benefits from the gunpowder depots. You can see standing near them, they now have 2.7 attack speed instead of 3, which means that they shoot just that 10% faster. And this is one of those things where where just, like, the Sentinels have incredibly, almost silly upgrade ability to them. And it's really a shame that wall guns in particular just doesn't seem to want to work with them. But they have so many other things going for them, it might make them broken, so I won't complain. So that's all my TED Talk. That's my TED Talk for today. I love Sentinels. I love using Sentinels. You can see my previously posted Age of Empires video entitled Cracking Turtle Shells with Sentinels and Fixed Guns to show me showing off Sentinels in an actual game and what they can be capable of. Until then, have a great day. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and goodbye.
Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. This was, as ever, a ton of fun to make. If you enjoyed the video, please do consider subscribing. It really helps the channel out, and have a great day.